Hey gamers, it's no secret I'm a big fan of Queen games. That's why I'm happy to review Airships. Let's check it out. Okay, so set up for this game. Each player is going to have their own player board. They're going to pick from 4 countries to be, and the countries are Italy, Germany, France, and the good old US of A. So what they do is they pick their card, make sure it's on the number 1, not the number 2 slot, number 1 slot, and put it right here on their player board. Now they're also going to get some little chit tokens that are going to match their player's nationality. They're going to get 6 of these, and I'll explain what they do later. You'll just put them over on the side of the board there. Next up, now this player board is super long. I can't get it all in one shot, but it is just super long there. It's unique. I don't know why they did that, but to be unique. So let me just go down here and tell you how this gets set up real quick. You're going to put out these blimp cards. First off, you're going to shuffle all these dark blue, medium blue, and light blue cards and deal out 1 on the stack. These go on the bottom, these go in the middle, and these light blue ones go on top. Then you'll flip over all the light blue ones like I did here. This is the Hindenburg up here, which is something you're going to be trying to build throughout the game. Now, next up, they have these little wrench cards. And what you're going to do is you're going to shuffle all the dark blue wrench cards first, put them there, and then put this little cardboard token there on top of that stack. Shuffle all your middle blue ones, put them on top of that stack, and then for the light blue ones, you're going to give one out to each player, and they're going to play it on their player board. Now, after you do that, you're going to dole out the rest of these on this board according to their character. And can I get that all in there? I think so. Now, of course, more players, of course, these wouldn't be on here. One of them would be to him. So let's say he got this one at the beginning of the game. He put it in his green slot, and other players would too. Now, the thing is, however many players you are, there's going to be less cards out here. You're going to pull from this medium one until you have 6. So let's say there's 2 other players here in the game, and now we had to put out 3 more cards. Now, if you see this, you put these cards in that order, and if ever you have to put, like if I had to put a 4th orange here, I would push all these cards down, and this card would get discarded since no one picked it. So anyway, what you're going to be doing in the game is you're going to be picking one of these cards. Basically, how it starts the game, you'll flip over one of these cards, flip it over, place it on the board, and then you choose a card that you want to roll for. And let me pull this thing down a little bit more so you can see some of the cards here. And so let's say I want to roll and get this red die. Ooh, that looks very nice. Now I get to roll, I can use up to 2 white dices to equal 5. Well, good thing I have 2 white die. How do I know that? These emblems here on the bottom. 1 white die there, and I started the game with another white die. So I can roll both of these white die. They go from 1 to 3. So I roll both of them, and I got a 3 that is not a 5. If that happens, I get one of these little tokens. And what I do is I put them here on my player board, and they are a +1 to an additional dice roll in the future. Now, you can, of course, build up to these and have plenty of them, but you may only use 1 per roll. So for instance, let's say I rolled this again, and I had a 3. Man, I need 2 more. Aha! 4 or 5. I could not do that. I can only use 1 for that entire dice roll. Other things that these tokens can do is you can discard all 3 of them and get an additional turn. So you can do back-to-back turns. That's something special. It takes 3 of those special tokens to do that. But let's say that I cheated and I got the 5 there. Or let's say I was going for this one, instead. So I went for that one. Well, I got a 1 and a 3. Well, I can only use 1 of these die, so I will use the 3, put it here. As long as it's equal or more than that, then I can get it, and I would place it on my player board and then slide this one down. Now, this makes me roll 3 white die. So on my next turn, maybe I do want to try for this red die again, but I can roll 3 white die because I have 3 white die. However, I can only use 2 of them to equal that score of 5. And let's say I have one of these from a previous failed roll, just in case. Well, Oh, I got it there. The 2 plus 3. I don't have to ignore that one, and I can use these two to grab that one. And as you see now, I place this in my yellow. Now, if ever I was to replace, let's say I got this one later on to get another red die, that means permanent 4. I can set one of these die to a 4 without rolling it. The thing is, all these icons, they are very easy to understand after you play it through once. Of course, the instruction manual will tell you what each icon means, but after the first game, we all knew what these meant. Anyway, if I wanted to get this one, I would have to replace it with the orange slot here and kick that one off, and this one would be discarded in the game. But if you see here, on my next roll, what do I have available to me? I have 3 whites and a red. Now, if it tells me I can use a red, I can roll with using that 1 red I have and the 3 white die. But I can only utilize that amount of die for my roll. So, for instance, later on in the game, here's one where you have to roll 1 red die and you have to hit it at a 5, which is the highest a red die will go. But you get a permanent 3, the highest number you can get on a white die if you have one. So that's pretty cool. So like I said, different cards can build up your engine to roll bigger and better dice. But of course you can only utilize the dice here to get that actual card. And then later on it'll give you dice or more +1 tokens or whatever it is. Now, that's how you're building your engine up. Let's look at building the blimp. And another thing I can do is I can use, let's say I have 3 white die. Well, I can roll and try to get this one or this one. That'd be nice. That's worth 2 points. So I roll these, and I got a 2 and a 2 and a 5. Well, that's 5, but that's 3 white die, but I can only use 2 of them, so I'd have a 2 and a 2. Thankfully, I have this token, aha, and I can get a 5. That's really awesome. If ever you get a blimp token, a blimp card, you take the blimp card and you put it right here. Now these, if you get another one, you just stack it. You do not replace these. These are game-ending victory points here. So they just stack here. You flip over the next card. And of course, these are going to get harder. I need a black die, but it's worth 3 points. I got to get a thing of 10. Black die can go up to 8 here. So that's a little bit harder, but maybe with some +1 token or bonuses on my board. Maybe I have different bonuses on the board that can help get to that 10. You want to score those because those are victory points. Now, whenever you build a blimp, you would take this blimp token, and every time, as long as you're the last person to build a blimp, on your turn, you're going to get a +1 on each one of your die rolls. So the next turn, if I tried to go for this card here, and maybe I just rolled 1 white die, that's a 3, but it could also be a 4, just on that 1 die. If I rolled 2, let's say these 2 here for that 10, holy cow, I did it, a 10. But let's say it was a 9 and I had the blimp, it would count as a 10 and I could grab this card too, as long as I can roll a black die. Now, of course, the next person to build a blimp would get this blimp token. So this thing is going to pass around a lot. Now, another thing you can do to get victory points is build up here on the Hindenburg. As you see, you need X amount of dice to roll and X amount of points to roll on those die. And then if you do that, you take one of your +1s, flip it over to your flag, and you place it here. Now these are in-game points at the end of the game. The hollow stars here is what happens if the Hindenburg isn't completed, meaning the game ends in 2 ways. Either you run out of the stack of cards or you run out of the blimps. If you run out of the blimps, that's actually going to be good because any of these points don't go for the hollow stars, they go for the solid stars, which will definitely increase your victory points at the end of the game. But you can build these before the Hindenburg's finished. So it may be kind of important to jump to here, especially if you see these cards disappearing. Anyway, so that's how a turn really goes. You're going to pick a card, flip it over, put it down here, and then pick the die, roll, either get that card, replace it with another one, or put it on your player board, or miss completely and get one of these player tokens. On top of that, though, when you go through all the medium blue cards, there is this here. This tells you you're upgrading to an age. So you flip that 1 over to a 2. So this 1 would be a 2. And now I can roll a white and a red die. So basically just improves your dice capacity. And then of course you start going through the dark blue cards, which would be even more powerful and everything. And like I said, you'll exactly know you can change in 2 reds for a black, stuff like that. And you can get to read these after a while. Now if you notice, some of these come with points on them. And what these do, if you were to play this and this stayed on your board at the end of the game, if you replace it, it gets trashed just like everything else. But if you kept it on your board the entire game, you're going to get X amount of points at the end of the game, but only if it stays on your board and you didn't replace it. And of course, those can be points at the end. So you keep playing until I said the stack runs out or that blimp runs out. Either way, you count up your points. Person with the most victory points wins the game. Final thoughts. What do I think about the game? Wow. Wow. This is an older Queen game. It's out of print, but it is cheap if you want to get it. And should you get it? Yes. I'm just going to go ahead and skip to the end. Yes. Yes. I don't know why the board is all long. It's not too bad when you're playing with a bunch of people, but couldn't they just made it as a regular board game? I don't know why it had to be long ways. I don't, maybe that's something thematic that I'm missing, but other than that, there's no complaints about this game. Basically, you're building up your player board. You're almost deck building in a way to roll better dice, to get those higher point cards, to get blimp cards, to there's so much strategy in here. Let me tell you about the first game we ever played with this. On the first game we ever played, some guy figured out the mechanisms really quick in my gaming group, and he had tons of dice. He could have red, white, black die. He got those before anyone else, and he was just really, he had his board just popping. And then he started going for the big items on the Hindenburg and the bigger cards in the deck. In the meantime, I only had all white and I got all the little bitty introductory blimp cards and maybe one Hindenburg spot on the Hindenburg, and then I got a bunch of those player board cards that you put in your player board and you keep until the end of the game. I actually ended up winning, and that's wild because we had two separate strategies. Mine involved hardly building up my dice, mat, and his was total dice. I went for all the low fruit, and he was hitting the high fruit. I mean, he was getting a lot of stuff. And I thought, he's going to win. He's got too much. But because I kept some of those point cards on my player board, never replaced them, even though I really should have, because that's what was hog-tying me, was when you get that point card, you are stuck with it. I mean, not really. You can replace it, but if you don't replace it with another point card, you feel like, oh, those are victory points. I can't let go of it. But man, I don't have any other red die but this one red die. What can I replace? No, it's all victory points. But in the end, it worked out beautifully because like I said, I barely won. He had some failed rolls at the end, which any one of those hits a success, he would have won the game. But still, when I saw that, it's like, yes, this is a great game because that means different strategies can win. Now, would I ever win with that strategy again? No, I have not. And I haven't even tried that strategy again. But that I won like that is really cool. This game is just so easy to learn. It is so much fun. And to be honest, people will go after those blimp cards. Can they get them all before the game ends? That's the big question. The game will end one of those two ways. And if the Hindenburg's finished, then you're really in trouble if you weren't working on that blimp because all those little points turn into big points. Great game. Great game. Again, Queen Games, you did it. You need to put this one back in print. Like I said, don't worry, it's super cheap online. So if it looks like deck building / dice rolling, it's a perfect combination of them both. If that's what you like, definitely need to get this game. All right, folks, that's all the time I have for now. Until next time, game on!